Hello and welcome once again to Fortress Alaska. I'm your host Dave, and here we're going to do our first book review. And this book review will be on the Man-Eaters of Tsavo. You might have seen the movie that goes along with the book, but let's just start with the book. The book was written by Lt Colonel J.H. Patterson, D.S.O, Distinguished Service Order. Anyways, you might have seen the movie called The Ghost in the Darkness, which starred Michael Douglas and Val Kilmer. The Michael Douglas character isn't part of the book, the book is the actual true story, while the movie is the fictional account of the basic plot of the story. Anyways, the book, like I said, is the true story of Colonel Patterson and his efforts to rid his construction site of these two man-eating lions. The story takes place in 1898 in the Tsavo region of Kenya, which is East Africa. Colonel Patterson was there to oversee the railroad bridge construction that was to cross the Tsavo River. And during his time there, a pair of maneless lions were attacking, killing, and eating members of the work party who were doing the construction on the bridge. These lions killed at least 28 people, but many think there were as many as 100 that were killed by these two lions. Most of the indications from the scientific research and historical documentation limits the number closer to 30, but for sure there were 28 people killed and dragged off by these two lions. The lions were such contention that they literally stopped the construction of the railroad, and this was such an exceptional thing that the British House of Lords discussed these two lions in Parliament, and the issue was actually brought up by the Prime Minister, Lord Salisbury himself. So it was a major issue at the time. A British railway line going up in 1898 was stopped by two lions, and that was a big deal. I mean, you can imagine having hundreds of men in a work camp who can't work because lions are killing them, and so construction is delayed, and you have hundreds of men. Remember, this was all done by hand back then. Those railroads were being built by hand. Literally hundreds of men doing nothing because of these lions. So, and when they could work was slowed down because of defense against the lions. Anyways, the bridge that Colonel Patterson ended up designing and building, was actually destroyed during World War I by the Germans, but then it was later rebuilt. This book is a really interesting look into the life in East Africa in 1898, 1899, and the hunting techniques and weapons of the time. Colonel Patterson's primary rifle that he used was a .303 British bolt-action rifle. The .303 British is roughly equivalent to the .308 Winchester. Now you must take into account that in 1898, this is when the story happens, smokeless powder was only developed in 1884. So smokeless powder rifles were still a relatively new thing. And the .303 British really is not a suitable cartridge for hunting lions. The standard of today is to use a .375 Holland & Holland, which is significantly more powerful than the .303 British. But the .375 Holland & Holland cartridge wasn't developed until 1912, so obviously Colonel Patterson did not have access to such things. So it's an interesting story. It's a true story. It is really more about, most of the book pertains to the lions and his having to deal with the lions, as well as the construction of the railroad. But there's also a portion of the book dedicated to his time off just hunting in East Africa, which is interesting once again. And he goes into details, literally, should you wish to go hunting there at this time, what it would cost you, how you go about ranging it, your travel options to get back and forth to Kenya from Great Britain or Europe. So it's an interesting look into the past and how things were done. Now the book, while it is, like I said, a true story, it does also include some photographs that he had taken, including pictures of the bridge that he designed and had constructed. And this is a picture of the first train crossing the bridge. And then there are other pictures, various pictures of the locals, as well as pictures of the wildlife. Now, the pictures are not are not at all good by today's standards, but remember these pictures were taken in 1898 by an amateur, not a professional photographer, and so naturally they're black and white and so-so in quality, but I am sure for 1898 they were probably exceptional pictures. So if you enjoyed the movie The Ghost in the Darkness, which is roughly this story, we'll just say that, you might really enjoy the book in reading the true story of what really happened and how life was in British East Africa in the late 1800s. So, if you can find the book, it's available on Amazon, probably available at your local bookstore. When I got my copy many years ago, the book had been out of print and there were no copies and there was no internet when I got this one. So I had to search this book out to find it. And I did find it from a book dealer. And I paid way more than you would pay for it today. So you can get a copy today for probably less than 20 bucks. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. And I would appreciate support on Patreon if you can do that. That also helps. It also really helps if you comment or share this video. Thank you once again. I'm Dave for Fortress Alaska.